The government is us. We are the government. You and I. Theodore Roosevelt, 1902. Welcome to the revolution. Hello and welcome to We Need a Revolution. My name is Kevin Rosenquist. As always, of course, I am joined by my good friend and co-host, John Banks. John, how are you today, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. I am growing out my bunker beard as I feel that the world is slowly sliding into the abyss. So I just want to have a nice long beard for the bunker.
I really don't feel like it's slowly. That's the one thing I have to disagree with you on that one. Also, you just trimmed it and you stopped looking like a prospector from, why? What's going on? You going back to prospector beard?
I'm just lazy.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There's really no reason.
Plus beard maintenance, not cheap in this economy.
Yeah. The oil's going up and there's beard oil.
Beard oil is very expensive. Everybody knows that goes through the Strait of Hormuz. So
people are not talking about how it's affecting me. So
you know what, John? I try to steer every conversation towards how it is affecting you.
I appreciate that. That's why I love you. So
I know.
How are you doing?
I'm good. Things are good. Weather here in Colorado is warm. It's we could use some rain, but that's kind of how it is here in the West. So
didn't it snow there like 4 days ago? There's a
Amber alert.
There's an amber alert in Los Angeles County. So
yes, it did snow here a few days ago, and then today it was the last few days it was 80. So that's just Colorado. It's just it's very very fast. So anyway, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining the show today. Please subscribe to our channel. We very much appreciate it. We very much appreciate you being a part of our community. As you know, we're trying to, talk to people about how we can change things, make things better, because, people need beard oil and
gas and food. Apparently food is a big deal.
Food is important.
Yeah.
Food is important. And growing your own is not as easy as one might think.
No, especially if you're me. I kill. I had 9 houseplants a year ago, and I'm down to 2. And I don't want to buy anymore because
it's not fair to the houseplants.
It's not like there's somebody out there who's going to buy those plants and give them life, and I'm just going to kill them slowly. Yeah, because I don't even kill them fast. I kill them slowly. They die
which
slowly.
is really evil. I mean,
they have to watch each other die, and it's gotta be terrible, absolutely terrible. So. Dude, are you following the redistricting? Have you been following?
I haven't. I saw a little note in the script you put together here, and it said you wanted to talk about Virginia redistricting. And I gotta admit, I'm off the radar on this one. What's going on?
Well, so Virginia voted to basically redraw their maps. So remember, like 6 months ago, 8 months ago, this started with Texas because the Republicans wanted to have an advantage. Hold the House. And then so basically all the blue states reacted. And so it's been a big controversy. And so anyway, yesterday, the state of Virginia had an election or had a vote on it, and they voted to redistrict their maps. And then today a judge stopped it. And so now it's going to the Supreme Court. So just a lot of political drama going on in Virginia. So
gerrymandering.
Yeah, which I know we're going to get into today.
Yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that. So again, thank you all for being here. We do these live, so if you have any questions, comments, or anything like that, feel free to use the comments. John monitors the comments, so please engage with us if you should choose to. We appreciate it, and we always love to hear what you guys have to say. So a few weeks ago we had John Goodwin, the National Communications Director from the Forward Party, on the show. We had a really, really great conversation about national politics and third parties and alternative votings and or alternative voting methods and things like that. Today, we're going to have a couple of people from my state, Colorado, to talk about like the local side of third parties, and particularly the Forward Party. And John, I always like to know. I'm always curious. What did you think about this? Kind of idea as you were researching this, as opposed to just from the national level.
Well, I mean, kind of what John Goodwin was saying when we had him on is, I think, this is where the local level is where really politics start. And I think also the local level is far more important than the national, level, because local affects you far more than national stuff, right? But it's the national. Local's not as sexy, right? No,
it's just your county commissioner is not a sexy exactly. Position, for sure.
comp controller. Yeah,
comptroller.
Yeah.
Most people don't know what a comptroller is.
Yeah, I don't either. I
think it's something with finance. I don't know.
They control the comps. So,
the comps. Oh, that makes so much more sense. Yeah, I really should have thought about that one. Yeah,
but no, it's I'm definitely looking forward to getting into the conversation with our two guests and kind of understanding more about the Ford Party's local movement in Colorado and throughout the nation. So.
And throughout the nation, because I mean, it's interesting. Like we're going to go over some pretty alarming stats about how many people go unopposed and in these local elections and all this stuff that you're just like, wow, we need more representation for sure. So let's go ahead and bring them out. As we talked about today, we are joined by John Lemke and Bridget Myers. John is a career engineer and operations professional who sees politics as a systems problem to be fixed with data. Bridget is a doctor of physical therapy and the secretary of the Colorado Forward Party, focusing on human-centered policy and healthcare equity. Let me bring them out. Bridget, John, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so you heard our little intro. Are people, broad question here for each of you. Bridget, I'll start with you. Are people, like, as by and large, are people involved with local politics in your opinion?
That's a great question. I want to say actually yes and no. I think one, of course, is depending on where you live is a huge component. I think here, I actually live in Boulder, and people are very, very active. They really care about the issues at hand. They go out and they dialogue with legislators. They really focus on the issues that are going to be on ballots or going to be bills. And I think that's really effective. I think there's other regions that they don't pay attention so much, or again, people are busy or things of that nature. So it really hasn't landed on their plate, so to speak. And so they kind of weigh in, after the fact sometimes, as far as that goes.
Bridget, do you think that because Boulder is a college town, do you think that is one of the reasons that people are more engaged in Boulder?
Actually, I don't. I think it's really people, not to tout something, but Boulder at one point, Boulder at one point was considered to be the most intelligent city in the nation, AKA had the most PhDs per populace.
I can tell you that I know a lot of people around here that are just so much more like intelligent than I am and so much more educated. It's crazy how many smart people with PhDs are around here.
Yeah. I will say when I finally got initials at the end of my name, I thought, ooh, now I can officially live in Boulder.
That's awesome. Well, John Lemke, curious, kind of same question for you. Maybe I'll ask it a little differently, though. Obviously, we are currently living in a very tumultuous time when it comes to politics and red versus blue and hatred and anger and all the stuff. Do you see that as having an impact as to why people might not be more involved in local politics?
I think I definitely think so. People that I've done advocacy with, like in housing, things quickly devolve into like the two camps. And if you're not in the right camp, people give up pretty easily, I think. Yeah. Or they get burned out from just like too much yelling and just discourages people from being involved at all.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, it is unfortunate. It definitely is unfortunate, but we see it, we see it all the time. So John, what brought you to politics? You're an engineer by trade. What was it that made you go, hey, I need to do something here, or something's wrong, or I want to get involved, or whatever? What was the impetus for you?
Oh, I'm going to end up plugging another podcast on here if I do that.
No, go ahead. Phil,
I was listening to Freakonomics like back in 2016 or 2017, and they talked about ranked choice voting. And I was like, oh, that sounds like a great thing to fix a lot of the problems that we have in politics. And it sort of snowballed from there, where I started volunteering with a local organization, and then I got involved with Forward, stood up an organization, where I am, and eventually ran for office.
What was it about Forward in particular that you felt drawn to?
There's two things that really stick out to me is that they let the candidates pick their platform and the things that you're going to run on, and that they're data driven. And so we should be making decisions around what's actually helping people and getting things done instead of exclusively emotional appeal, because we've got a lot of problems that are really tough to solve, and we should be making informed decisions to fix them.
Yeah, that makes sense. Bridget, kind of the same question to you. Like, how did you get involved in politics? And from there, what led you to the Forward Party?
Well, I've always been really politically aware and engaged for, as long as I could vote. I think it's, an important thing to participate in elections. And that's been important personally for me. My undergrad is actually in journalism. So at a fairly young age, I was very astute as to why it's important to pay attention to politics, what's going on, both at the local as well as the national level and things like that. So I would say over time, as the political climate has become, more polarized, which I'm sure we'll talk about, I've really had an increasing need to better understand how the system works and why it kind of functions the way it does. So that curiosity actually ultimately led me back to school. So I've since been a physical therapist for a long time, and I'm currently now back in school because that's what you do. And so I'm now getting a master's degree at University of Colorado, Denver, not Boulder, which is weird. And it's in political science. Wow. So I think ultimately, I think it's important, and that's why I became a member of the Forward Party, because I grew concerned about what's going on and really had a desire to kind of explore that alternative approach, because I recognize what we're doing right now isn't working. It's broken. Yeah. Should we continue to do the status quo that we've been doing for a long time now? Probably not, because we're just going to expect the same, right? That's that whole presence of if you do the same thing, you expect the same thing over and over.
Same results, yeah.
Exactly. So I think really focusing on structural reform and really putting into place what can we do as far as that goes. So that's really what I personally identified with in terms of from an academic approach, but also kind of a broader perspective on where politics could potentially improve, and what's my role? Is my role to complain about it, or is my role to actually do something about it? And so ultimately, that's why I joined the Forward Party.
And I feel like, to your point, the majority of people, pretty much everybody is feeling the polarization. Pretty much everybody is feeling maybe a little politically homeless in a lot of ways, except maybe you have the far left or the far right. But most of all, most people I think are feeling that. I think a lot of people, especially people I know, like to just sort of bury their head in the sand, pretend it's not there, just control what they can control, live their lives. And obviously I get that. There's peace in that. There's a
it's an excellent strategy.
It is an excellent strategy.
I've been doing it for 51 years. It
keeps you from having to, like, even just like not paying attention. I get why people aren't paying attention. Now, it's not a good thing, obviously. How do we get people, and I guess this question's for anybody who wants to answer it. How do we get people to not just completely fall off and actually go, okay, how can we find a better option?
That's like a really difficult thing. I'm going to talk about a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about when I ran. I almost didn't run because I looked at one of the other candidates. His name is Alex Kalkoffer, and I know how vote splitting works. I'm like, man, he and I care about the same things. His platform is really close to what I would run on. And I asked, and I met him, and he's like, no, you should run too. We have the same message. We should get it out there and get people to care. But the problem is then we split the vote because if you have two candidates running on the same thing because they both think it's really important, our current system makes it so that they'll knock each other out of the race and somebody else will win. And so I do think it's a like the voting system, the way that we elect people, is a big part of it. because you can't have multiple people who care about the same thing running at the same time.
So, okay. So let's get into ranked choice voting. So for our listeners, the first question is, what is ranked choice voting? What is that?
Ooh, so the simplest way I could explain it is it's just say you have three people, you vote number one, who you love, who you like, and who you can live with. And you tally up the votes, and whoever's got the least votes, they get knocked out. You look at those ballots, you look at who is marked as number two, and you physically move those ballots to the candidate that's remaining, and whoever gets over 50% is the winner. And in my race, we had 6 people running with 2 winners. And so there was a really big vote split among the different candidates.
And so just to be clear, so that people understand it, if you have, you pick your top 3, like you said, your favorite, your middle, and your, least of the top 3 at least. And then the last person who is out. So like say of those 3, the last person with the least votes gets kicked out. So then the person with the number 2, all of the votes that they had either for number 2 or number 3 get added, or just number 2?
No, you would just take those ballots that are remaining, and I think it's helpful to think of them as ballots, and you look at the ones that are remaining, and you just go to the number 2 column, and you divvy up the ballots among those 2 last candidates, depending on which name was marked as the second choice.
Okay. So if you put someone down as number 3, that's not going to get counted later on.
Correct. It doesn't get counted later on. It is also called instant runoff voting. It's like you're running, having runoffs like consecutively, and there's no like calculation after the fact or things like that.
Okay. Bridget, anything to add on that, or does that?
Well, it actually, if you think about it, it saves money because, as you said, it's kind of like an instant runoff. So then you don't have a tie or something like that where you have to spend millions of dollars now to have a special election,
right,
and things of that nature. So I think if you think of it, your vote essentially counts. You go until there's a majority winner, as far as that goes. So it's not just one vote, but you get multiple votes sometimes that matter. And whoever gets that majority, that's the candidate that ultimately wins.
And the idea, of course, is that you don't feel you get rid of that spoiler effect. A lot of people say, well, I'm not going to vote for a third party candidate because, that might be a vote against the party that I like, and then the person that I don't like might end up elected, so I'm not going to vote for that. And this kind of takes that away, right?
It very much does.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, I would imagine like a big challenge with trying to push for ranked choice voting in any area, especially nationally, but let's talk about locally. It's like, so let's say that I'm originally from Alabama. I live in a red area, right? And as a voter, I'm like, oh, well, you know what? I don't want the Democrats. I don't want any blue to have a chance. So if I have this ranked choice voting, I'm gonna screw my chances of getting the guy that I want. Is that something that you, or the person I want, is that something that you guys are finding is kind of an uphill battle trying to get this implemented?
Definitely. It's really interesting in that conservatives there's people who are conservative who think it's bad for conservatives, liberals who think it's bad for liberals, right, and moderates who think it's bad for them. And I think it's because it's not really good or bad for anybody. It just makes it so that people can vote honestly and candidates can run honestly. And then we pick the person that the most people are good with. And I think maybe that scares people a little bit, because they see there's like a little bit of gaminess where, like we had in Longmont, 2 very liberal people ran and a conservative person also ran, and the 2 liberal people got like the exact same amount of votes, but neither one of them won, even though they had like 60% of the vote combined. And so they look at it and they're like, oh, we should have definitely done this because, a liberal person would have won the seat.
Okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
That's
okay.
An example of the vote split that happened in Longmont a few years ago.
What a cool example, right? I mean, because it's like a real life example of that's people's fears coming to life.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Well, it's funny. It's interesting too how to me it's like immediately people go through, well, this will hurt me. Like what we don't have this like better for all mentality. It's like, how is this going to affect my party? How is this going to affect my chances? Instead of going, this is good for everybody. You know, I mean, Bridget, when you're looking at, you know, local politics, obviously Boulder it leans considerably more left. Do you feel that something like a ranked choice voting option would be embraced in a place like Boulder?
I do. It's actually been utilized for the mayoral component, but I do think it's also been a proven voting method. People don't realize that, but it's been used for major elections in the United States and other countries for, I think it's over a century, actually. So it really has proven itself, we'll say, as far as that goes, where I feel like it's a moment where your vote can actually count instead of, you know, as we said, burying your head and be like, I'm not even going to go out and vote today. It doesn't matter. Yeah. It's the opposite. It's like, I got to vote because my vote now really plays a part in that election.
And you feel represented.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So what are the efforts? Like, I'm assuming is the Ford Party making efforts in Boulder to have this implemented? I mean, I'm not sure. How does it work? In other words, how do you change a voting system in a county or in a city? And like, how does that work?
It's a good question. I don't know that
either. The city of Boulder already changed, and they use ranked choice voting. The city of Longmont, which is where I live, is currently working on it. I'll make this as short as possible, but we have to actually change our city charter to implement it. And we have to have city council refer a measure to the ballot for voters to decide to change the city charter. And our city council has been very receptive. I think there's a group called RCV for Longmont, which I helped found. And I think my campaign really talking about ranked choice voting helped because we've had a study session and it looks pretty good. There's a lot of interest on city council to refer it to the ballot this fall. We did some polling. And it came back 65% of the city in favor of implementing ranked choice voting. So it's looking really, really promising here in Longmont.
That's great.
So what was the election? So what was the election where it actually cost two liberals? Like what was that seat for? What was the position that was being voted on?
Well, in a few cities, in Longmont, it was for the seat that Diane Christ is currently in. And that was like 3 or 4 years ago. But I think a more famous one is the city of Aurora, which you may remember there was all the controversy around the one apartment supposedly taken over by gangs. Two liberal folks split the vote, and Mike Kaufman won, who's very, very, very conservative and he won in a very, very liberal city, the city of Aurora. But interestingly, he won re-election, even though he won just like 30% of the vote the first go around.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And that was for so maybe, right? Maybe it is like another way to sell this is it's a really good thing because it does balance. If you have like I'm in California and oh my God, like, you know, we're very, very blue. And I will say that as a Californian, I believe that's harmed us, right? Because we don't have a lot of balance in our politics and it's basically whatever, you know, there's no checks and balances, right? And so it's really, you know, you can point to our state and there's a million problems, but homelessness being one of them, and we cannot get that under control, which we seem to be actually going more red now because of that, which is interesting. So
that is interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bridget, what is the Forward Party doing to kind of promote ranked choice voting, promote alternate voting methods?
It's a great question. Certainly education is number one. I think people don't even understand what it is or that it exists elsewhere as far as that goes. And then really identifying the representation system as part of that. So understanding that your vote is a key component regardless. So its main advantage really is fairer representation. So as we talked about, there's fewer wasted votes and more political diversity. So I'd say that's the biggest thing, is to get people to understand that not only what it is, but that it exists. I think it's in 62 areas already, and there's states like Alaska, I think, was the first one to come up with it. So there's many different states and jurisdictions that already carry it as far as that goes. And then answer questions, answer their concerns about what it is, why do I care about it? Will it be utilized to represent me? How is it good for eligible voters and things of that nature?
I find it interesting because we've had, we had John Goodwin on here from the Colorado or from the National Forward Party. Mm-hmm. And we've had some other people talking about alternative voting methods or third parties as guests on the show. And it kind of cracks me up because you read some of the comments, which shouldn't do, I know, but you read some of the comments on our videos and you're just like, people are they're almost like passionately against a third option, citing all these crazy statistics that are really not true. It really has been a strong campaign against letting anyone who's not part of the two parties in it. And it seems like it's like, from what we can tell, it seems like it's a unified front on the right and the left to try to keep that from happening. Is that what you guys see as well?
It is.
I think it's Dennis Rodman had a quote about, the Democrats and the Republicans definitely only want to compete against, the only thing they agree upon is they only want to compete against each other.
Dennis Rodman said that.
I think so. Yeah. That's what a friend of mine told me, at least. I was like, oh, don't quote me. That's just,
And Bridget, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, you're absolutely right. It's really, sometimes we're set in a system that's two parties and has been that way for essentially a long period of time. Number one is change is scary. The only constant, however, should be change. And yet we've been in this two-party system for a significant amount of time. And it's that structurally tilted towards those two dominant parties. And so third parties in the US have struggled historically and things like that. However, right now, as you talked about, people are politically homeless. And so what that means is right now, at least in Colorado and throughout the nation, over 50% of people are either unaffiliated or they are affiliated as independents.
I just recently went unaffiliated. Yep. Yeah. Within the last 6 months, even. Yeah.
I was a lifelong Democrat up until about a year and a half ago.
Me too.
Yeah. So I look at it as it's an opening. It's a time now to have that dialogue and say, you're unhappy, I'm unhappy. We understand things are broken, things aren't working. So let's start incorporating something that we can tend to agree on and things like that. And so, for instance, ranked choice voting, or looking at, individuals that have that integrity. Because if you really look at the Forward Party, and I'm sure you talked about this when you talked a few weeks ago, it's really about having that integrity, standing up for the Constitution, recognizing the Constitution is there for a reason. And above all, treating each other with integrity, and really sitting down and having a discussion and having a dialogue with each other. I think that's really what's missing in large part. When people stand up and say, I'm voting the same way as, everyone else. So it's either going to be Republican legislation or Democrat legislation. It's an opportunity to actually sit down and say, we're going to have a dialogue and things like that, and really understand what the issue is, and not have that, I have to vote this way or I have to vote that way because I have an R and a D at the end of my name. I'd love to see where people vote for things and that's not even present. That's not even a component about it. Let's vote on the issues at hand. And a lot of people agree with that. I think we ultimately want a lot of the same things, but it's really frustrating when that's not being heard, shall we say.
Absolutely. Yeah. And honestly too, I feel like, more people are voting straight tickets now. At least people I know are just like, yeah, man, I can't do more Trump, so I'm just going all Democrat. It's all I'm going to do. Or I hate the Democratic Party. I'm going all right, or all red. And it's just like this, I don't know. That's just not a good spot to be in.
Yeah. We're hate voting.
We're hate voting. 100% hate voting.
We're not voting in our interests. We're just voting. So I don't know. So it's a vote against someone, not a vote for someone.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Absolutely.
And is it even about policy anymore? Like, do people even pay attention to that anymore? Or is it strictly the rhetoric?
Or do they know it?
Do they even know it? Yeah.
Yeah. You have to do your due diligence. And sometimes people don't have the time or don't have the wherewithal or what have you. And so
desire.
And so you end up voting against.
So Bridget, I want to veer off just a little bit here because of just as we're talking, right. And we're talking about a two-party system. And since you're a political science person, right. And I would hope, well, you would definitely know more than I do. So I know at one time, like from my high school and college, I remember there's a Whig party, right? And then there was like a two-party system, and eventually the Whig party changed. So like, has there
real current reference there, John?
Hold on,
good Lord,
I'm going somewhere with this.
Okay,
so can we bring back the Whig party? No,
can we bring back the Whig party?
No, like, has there ever been a time in our history where there was a strong third party in this country?
That is great. I haven't done my due diligence. And
okay.
The Whigs and the Tories, no. I think if you bring the Whigs back, you have to actually wear a wig. So I don't think that's going to work.
I'm so in. I would so do that.
I am not in for that. That would just creep me out.
At one point, I think then eventually the Republican Party came around or what have you. So at one point there was a different system, we'll call it, and things of that nature. But it you bring up kind of an interesting point, because one of the things that is historically important is if you look at other countries has a multi-party system. If you look at, I think it's Netherlands, has something like 17 parties. And it works. So,
but people people always point to Israel, and there's one other country I can't remember where they have like 7 or 8 parties, and there's constant infighting and nothing gets done and all this stuff. So everybody wants to point to those and not the Netherlands, which made it work.
Yeah, there's many places that have made it work, and so I think you do away with that spoiler effect, if you will, when you have that multi-party system.
Well, I think too, like, you could also, like, I've heard the argument made that, like, if you look at the Democratic Party and you look at AOC and John Fetterman, if they would not, in another country, they would not be under the same banner as far as a political party.
Right.
Because they're so far apart. But in this country, it's like, okay, you're blue, you're red. This is how we vote.
This is how we do it. Yeah. And, I read a really good book a while back, Breaking the Two-Party Doom Loop by Lee Drutman. And one of the things that he said that I thought was super interesting was that, because he wasn't necessarily advocating for more parties that are totally different, but having different factions within the parties, so you can be, a liberal or a kind of a Democrat, but not be like locked into everything that the Democratic ideals are all about. John, do you feel, is that, obviously you're with the forward party, you're with the third party, but is Lee Drutman in this assessment kind of right about that? Because he said that it used to be more like that. People weren't so dug into just the party. There was more different factions within.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think so. Even within Longmont, we had a couple of more conservative Democrats run, and it was a struggle for them within the party for not, towing sort of the local party line. And I mean, I also read the same book, and having you sort of see it with like Mitt Romney in Massachusetts, and then Chris Christie in New Jersey, really liberal states, but they got liberal Republicans as governors. But we really have completely sorted into like very liberal Democrats and very conservative Republicans. We don't have conservative Democrats and liberal Republicans anymore.
No, they'd be a third party, or they wouldn't even be a Democrat or Republican. Yeah.
Oh, they don't make it through the primaries, right? So, so if we were to do if we had a ranked choice voting on a national level, that would, and we with our conversation with John Goodwin, I think this was kind of one of the points he was making, that would get rid of gerrymandering, right? I mean, or it would basically make gerrymandering ineffective.
Only if we had there's a couple different ways you can call this: winner districts, proportional representation. The like super technical term is single transferable vote, where you would take all those districts that have been gerrymandered and you say, all right, we're just going to combine all these 5. We're going to use ranked choice voting, and there might be 10 or 15 people on the ballot, but you're going to rank them all, and we're going to get the top 5 people out of there. And then what you would end up seeing is you'd see like a very liberal Democrat, a conservative Democrat, maybe a liberal Republican, another liberal Republican, and a conservative Republican, or a third party in there. And so that's ultimately that's what I would love to see and what I'm pushing for and hoping my local efforts get us there, because it's a much if you just look at how people are, there's not 2 viewpoints, there's a whole mix, and I think we really need to get there. The countries that do that specifically are Ireland, Australia, and then the tiny country, I think Malta is the other tiny little European country.
Shout out to Malta.
Yeah,
beautiful place.
Sounds made up.
It does, right? Like, I don't know that I could find it on a map.
Yeah, I wanted to ask something too. I'm gonna tease my co-host too, because he put what in the script. What did the Colorado Forward Party have to do to get on the ballet in Colorado? So I had to call him out on that. So if anybody wants to talk ballet, John's interested.
Well, I mean, Timothy Chalamet said it's a dead art, but I disagree with that wholeheardly. So
okay, good. You know what? Yeah, fly your flag, dude. Fly your flag. But anyway, how do you guys work to get the Forward Party on ballots in a variety of states, and maybe particularly how was it able to get on the ballot in Colorado?
In each state, it's different, and Colorado is easier than most states, which is why we got on here first. We had to collect 10,000 signatures across the state over a period of 2 years. We actually did it in less than 1 year, turned them into the Secretary of State, and we became a minor political party. And then once we became a minor political party, we can have nominating conventions and nominate people onto the ballot for the general election. And we actually just had our nominating assembly, I think is like the legal term, where we have some folks that are going to run for local office and state office this fall under the Forward Party banner.
Well, it's awesome.
And what is because you guys have such a big umbrella, right? So like how is it when you have candidates who are coming into that party? I'm sure you're not just like anybody can come in. Like what are like the principles? I think you guys have principles, positioning, and initiatives. Is that correct? Like what is that?
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll let Bridget go first.
Wait, principles? What?
Principles, positioning, and initiatives. So when I was doing research, that was like the Colorado Forward Party. That's and again, please understand when I do this, I'm going through a lot of stuff. So sometimes I get things I'm like, oh, that's not right. But when I was researching this, it was Colorado Forward Party. It's a platform of principles, positioning, and initiatives.
I think a good way to say it is if you've ever heard the book, Everything I Learned About that I needed to learn, I learned in kindergarten.
Yeah.
It boils down to you have to have respect for people. You have to be focused on actually solving problems and not just propagating them. You really have to base your decisions on evidence and data, and you have to be willing to engage with people, listen to your constituents, I feel like just be a good human being in order to join. We do vet people to make sure they, haven't committed crimes. They're not, propagating hate speech and really othering people or, just there's issues that people jump on that are unsolvable and affect less than 10 people in the whole country. And then they can't get past those. And those are really not the people that we're looking for to join us.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Yeah, I thought one of the things that I thought was that, kind of cool about the Forward Party as we were going is, and I think John talked about this. John Goodman talked about this when we had him on, was just the idea that candidates don't pound the pavement anymore. They don't go and talk to people anymore. It's more like hey, I ain't going to win out there. I'm not going to waste my time. I don't want to talk to these local yokels. I don't want to do this. This isn't my thing. But one of the things that third parties do, and particularly for you guys, the Forward Party does, is really reach out to those smaller towns, those places that maybe they don't, they might not have as much of a reason not to go because they're underdogs everywhere. So like it may as well go everywhere, right? Is that kind of what you guys sort of build off of?
You certainly need a lot less money in a small town, and it's easier for you to knock on quite a lot of doors.
Yeah.
And we have 2 statewide candidates, but I think everybody else that's running is running in pretty small towns, where they have like a relationship with a lot of the people already in the community. And it's, if you're going into Denver where there's 1 million people, it's like really hard to get your name out there. But you're in a small town of 50,000 people, it's a lot easier for you to reach a big percentage of the folks there.
That's a good point. You might see them out at restaurants or bars or little league games or whatever. Yeah. Bridget, what do you see as the biggest hurdle for third parties to just even get people to give them a chance to even listen?
Well, for me, I think number one is understanding, why there hasn't been a third party, essentially as far as that goes, that people have deemed acceptable and things like that. And we've talked a bit about that, is that our system has been flawed for a long time and things like that. So having given the circumstances, as far as that goes, I think people are rethinking democracy and rethinking what that means to them, both on a local level as well as nationally, as far as that goes. When people start standing up and saying, this isn't right. And I think a lot of people are doing that. And for that reason, I think having the Forward Party step forward and say, it's important to be embodied and to really understand and be a component as part of not just your voting, but also as part of being, a constituent, as far as that goes. So it's not just about, paying lip service or things of that nature. It's really the whole premise is look locally and start looking there. And I really encourage people to look at the person. Don't vote the party, but vote for the person. And I think that has often been, like we talked about, you look and just say, oh, it's a D or it's an R, and that's who I'm going to vote for, instead of not understanding. And I think we are suffering from that to a certain extent.
Yeah, I would say so.
And so I think really refocusing and saying, democracy is important. We get the chance to vote. We're privileged. There are some countries that don't ever get to vote, as far as that goes. And so I really encourage people to step forward and start to vote and really, rethink how things are as far as that goes. So I don't know if that answers your question, but really the idea is we have important things in place, the Constitution and things of that nature. And it's time to rethink how we have that and focus on those values in terms of the Forward Party, or realigning with how you think about things. It's a little scary, but think about if we actually had people, standing up and saying, okay, right now it's scary how few independents there are in the legislation. If you look, it's really not a whole lot.
No, it's very much not a whole lot. And one of the other things that we talk about on this show a lot is the fact that, a lot of politicians are in the pockets of corporations, of billionaires, of CEOs, of whatever. And obviously that's nothing new necessarily. Maybe it's more in our face now, but I don't know. What do you guys think you know, as far as campaign contributions, how do you as a third party keep from getting swayed? How do you, you know, keep candidates from going down that path of perhaps maybe voting based on their campaign contributions over the needs of the people?
Man, I guess right now it's sort of is what I find is that really wealthy people only donate money to people that are already in office to help them get reelected, to make their likelihood of it being effective a lot safer. I don't I don't think that we have since we have not gotten to the issue yet of like where we have giant billionaires just giving us tons of money. It's not the issue that we've, you know, championed for ourselves to say like, oh, how do we make sure we don't get influenced? Because we're still at the point where, you know, we're trying to raise any money at all. But I mean, for me personally, I would love to see us do some campaign finance reform. And I know that our one founder, Christine Todd Whitman, she was in the Republican Party and was told by, you know, the party, like, you can't advocate for any campaign finance reform legislation. And she was a big advocate for it because she's like, she saw, you know, 20 years ago, the big problem that it was causing. And it is a really tough issue because of the Supreme Court's decision to allow unlimited donations.
Yeah.
So I know like before we were going back and forth in emails and John, you had said something about basically like, it seems like sometimes in local elections, you're faced with people want like these national issues, and I'm not getting into those at all, but I'm just kind of curious, are the two of you seeing, you know, because everybody's feeling the pinch of money, right? Everybody's feeling inflation. Everybody's feeling, you know, like there are these national things that happen that we all feel on a local level. So as like when local politicians are running, I'm sure that has to be coming up for people. And how do you address that as a local politician, right? You know,
not to interrupt, but ICE would be another good example, John.
Yeah,
of what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like where you have these ICEs coming into these communities, local government has nothing to do with that. But, you know, but I would imagine that local government is the one taking the brunt of why is this happening in my backyard? So how do you, how do you deal with those issues?
Like as a candidate? Or
well, yeah. I don't mean how do we solve them? I mean, how do you, as a local as running a local politician, being confronted with that, like how do you deal with the public and basically like, you know, what are the things that local politicians are running on, or what is it that they're trying to change in their communities? I guess that would be a better way to ask it, because they can't change inflation, you know.
No, I don't want to be cynical, but what I learned is, so I told people I go to campaign events and I'm like, I'm not going to lie to you. And that did not go over well at all. Like, I'm going to tell you what I believe. And it was like shocking how much people are like, no, I just want you to get up there and tell me what I want to hear.
Oh, wow.
You know, so like, one, if you want to be effective, just tell people that you can combat ICE and keep them out of our community, and that you can reduce like cost of living in you know, wherever you are.
Right.
And there is a big enough group of people that you could make those claims and they would believe you. You know, for me personally, there's things that you can change that we, you know, I'll get into a specific thing because I'm passionate about it, and that's housing. You know, we have laws in the city of Longmont that increase the cost of housing that we could change and decrease the cost of housing. And it's like, listen, these are the things I would change. This is how housing would be different. And I would like to do it. And it would, you know, let us build homes for less money, and it wouldn't cost the government anything. And even then, it's really shocking how many people are opposed to that. And so it's not as like, inflation is actually really helpful to a lot of people, which I think is why it's really hard to tackle, because like rising house prices and rising rents is really good for the people that own a house and are landlords.
Renting, right? Yeah. Why do you think people were not pushing back against your idea for affordable housing?
And I should make the distinction between, like, I'm not talking government subsidized affordable housing.
Sure.
I'm just saying like legalizing houses that are smaller, that have a smaller setback from the street, so that we can legalize townhomes. What they say is that we can't support the density in our city. And I think that's just like a smokescreen, because like there's cities all over the world that are way, 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 way denser than Longmont, like crazy dense, and they can do it. And they'll say, it's traffic. I don't want crime. I don't want pollution. And I think a lot of it is they do recognize that if we build more houses, it will keep housing prices from skyrocketing. And if you own a home, you want your home price to skyrocket.
Especially if you bought a home during the time when everything was going nuts. You don't want to see it go down. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Money.
It all comes back to money. Yeah. I mean, and obviously to some degree you can't blame people. I mean, that's their money, that's their, and you're not talking about, millionaires here. You're talking about an average American who, happened, I got lucky. I bought at a good time and I got in right before it went nuts. And so, but I could understand to some degree how someone who's like, doesn't want to see their property go down when they bought during the height of the craziness of where prices were out of control.
And I have emailed billionaires trying to sell my soul, and so far no takers, but it is for sale. So
but you've sold your soul to so many people. It's been just chopped up and given away, and
don't destroy. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
The NIMBY, the power of like NIMBY mentally is pretty powerful, because like I moved to a new community, it was just built, and like within a few months, I had some neighbors come out. They're like, we got in. We don't want anyone else to move into Longmont. Like, we got to shut the door.
Yeah. As soon as they're in. Yeah.
As soon as they're in, that's pretty common. And I met another woman on the campaign trail who she wanted rent control for herself, but she didn't want any new houses built around her. She's like, I like the way it is. I don't want my rent to go up. I just want everything to stay the same. And I think that that's like a cognitive dissonance that doesn't make a lot of sense to me, that you're like, I've got mine and I want to pass laws to make sure that nobody else gets what I've got.
Yeah. There was I forget who, there was some college, they did a thing where they played Monopoly. They had students play Monopoly, and one student would have an advantage, and they knew they had an advantage starting out, and they would win. But after they would win, they would basically be like, oh, I'm just lucky. I'm just good at this. Right. They would literally, like within a game, they would forget why they won.
Yeah. Like no, you were given an advantage, remember?
But they literally would forget, or they would just, it just wouldn't come into their mind that they had an advantage. It's the same thing in LA. We have I forget how many billions of dollars we have that we've taxed ourselves to help homelessness, and everybody's not in my backyard. So right, it's like we have, I think it's $13 or $14 billion set aside to build housing and for homelessness, and we can't do it because nobody wants it.
Yeah, nobody wants the low-income housing near them. Nobody wants the low-rise apartments. Nobody wants. Yeah, I mean, nobody wants that stuff, and it's a shame. It doesn't always mean crime. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's what people think. It's like that's going to be crime, or like your point, John, about the woman who was happy and wanted to close the doors. Everyone's got like this thing, or a lot of people have this thing where they don't want change. I mean, you guys know that, being a third party, they don't want change because their lives are good enough. And they don't want to upend and change too much because that's too hard to accept. Mm-hmm. You could use that example in so many different things about whether it's trans rights, gay rights, housing. Like, you go all over a number of different situations, and you'll find that. So before we wrap up here, is there anything I'd like to give you guys an opportunity to, if there's anything that you wanted to discuss, anything particularly about the Forward Party, about third parties, about current politics that you would like to get out there to our audience?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Bridget. You've been quiet for a bit.
Yeah, Bridget.
I really think, we really need to redefine our system. I think as we started this conversation, we recognize our system is broken, and it's time. It's not to say that there's not bits and pieces that are helpful, but I think by and large, it's time to redefine things and really uphold and look at, should I vote for someone that has really good values and things like that, and will listen to me and dialogue and discuss, and we can work things out? Or do I want to vote for someone who ultimately shuts down the system and is going to vote how they're going to vote no matter what, as far as that goes. It's essentially does someone have a down hall and listen to me versus, nope, I'm not going to listen to you. So I think ultimately living values, and I think it starts here in the community, that you're living in. And so I really think it's important to focus on looking at who you want to have in front of you and whether you're going to have that dialogue and discussion, or are we going to continue down the path of, who knows what, because we're already kind of getting there as far as that goes. So
we can't stay the course or this isn't going to work long term.
Well, it's continued a path that I personally, that's why I changed what I'm doing, is really to focus on what's going on and what can we do in order to change that. And so for me, the reason I firmly believe in the Forward Party is because they have to take a pledge to uphold Forward values and really act in that way as far as that goes. We're not seeing that today by and large. It's not to say every legislator is doing something improperly, because they're not. But by and large, I want someone who's going to respect the office, that's going to dialogue, that's going to partner, and ultimately is going to work together as far as
and wants to help people, that wants to actually see people be successful and not just look out for themselves.
Exactly. And that's ultimately the whole, it's not left, it's not right. It's about working together to go forward.
Love it. John, anything to add?
If I could have people remember a thing, we're not going to get different results until we have a different system. And we really need, in my opinion, proportional representation, also called multi-winner ranked choice voting. Our system is delivering the exact results that it is set up to do, which is just like partisan gridlock where people don't solve problems. I'll give you an example from New York. I have a friend who joined the Republican Party and he wanted to repeal like a gun control law. And he's like, he got in, he met the guy in charge. He's like, so we're going to work on repealing this law, right? And the guy's like, listen, we raised too much money railing against it. We're not actually going to repeal it because it's better for us if we just leave it in place and then just complain about it. And until we change our system, that's going to just keep happening, where people complain about the laws, politicians, because it generates a lot of campaign contributions. We got to change the system for that for us to get a different result.
That's not exactly surprising, but it's very terrifying to hear that being actually said. John Banks, anything to add? I never asked you that.
Just Whig Party 2028,
Yeah. Bring your own wig.
Yeah. Bring your own wig.
We are not supplying the wigs, people.
Well, it's for me as a guy who's going male pattern baldness, a wig is great, right? That's so much cheaper than the Rogaine, so yeah.
I don't know that they're talking about a piece like a toupee. I don't think that's the Whig Party's look. Well, thank you guys very much for joining us today, Bridget Myers and John Lemke. If I'll start with you, Bridget. If people want to get in touch, what's the best way?
Certainly, we have a website, so feel free to check out the Colorado Forward Party. It's forwardparty.com or the Colorado Forward Party. Sorry, I'm just looking it up.
Yeah, no problem.
That's what I like about, you can cut this out, or the coloradoforwardparty.com. is a great platform. It has lots of information on there. It also tells you who is running directly under the Forward Party and things like that. But I think it's time for a new kind of political party.
Yeah. All right. Well, I love it. John, how about you? What's the best way for people to get in touch with you?
You can certainly look me up on LinkedIn, John Lemke. I do have a campaign email that I still have live, which is lemke4longmont@proton.me. And those are two ways you can get in touch with me if you want.
Awesome. We'll put these in the show notes too, just to make sure that everybody's got the information. Well, again, John, Bridget, really appreciate your time. John Banks, always good to see you as well. Thank you all for listening. Thank you all for being here. I hope you guys have a great night.
You too. Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
much.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.